Okay, working on the oil tank here. We got two feed lines on this one in the back over here, and this hose is way too short, so we have to replace this feed hose. So these are oil line, our oil return, our vent. And then for the feed, we have a feed line, a drain line, I guess. So what I'm going to do is put the feed on the inside, and we'll just put a plug here on this for a drain, 8-inch pipe plug. And that will take care of that problem. Now the problem we got right now is I don't know how restricted these fittings are. So here's an sample of some ones I got laying around. So you can see how they all got different hole sizes for feeding through here. Obviously this one won't flow very much fuel, well, very much fluid through it. At least here, this one's the same more or less on this side. So you go ahead and flip these things up, and you look at the hole through the other sides, and those are all relatively big, but this one here is the smallest. And this brass one has the biggest one through it. Yeah, but the problem is the restriction on the other side. You restrict this down to nothing right here. That's very low flow compared to that one, or this one, which is a lot bigger. So each one of these gets bigger as you go. So what you want to do is you want to cut all your fittings out to be in at least the size of this one, if not one size bigger. It's easy like I go and it's one size bigger. You got to be careful if they get in the way of chains and stuff like that. This came off an Ironhead Sportster oil tank that got in the way of the chain. But it had a nice big hole there and a big hole there. So it was one of these brass fittings like this originally. So that's still a high flow fitting compared to these other ones here. These really restrictive ones are very common. The same thing happens here on your straight fittings also. Now this one here is a nice high flow one, but you can still go a little bit bigger if you wanted. It weakens them, so when you drill them out, you can't go beating on them with a big hammer that breaks them. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these two fittings out of here, or at least I don't care about the vent. The vent's up here. I'll pull out the return one right here. I'll make sure that has a big hole through the center of it. And I'll open up one of these other ones over here to use for the feed. And then we'll have good fittings for flowing our oil through. I also need to go down and check to see what's underneath down here on the oil pump and check them also. You don't know what's going on up under here. So I'll go ahead and clean all this stuff up and see what happens. Okay, I pulled out the two fittings out of the tank here, and surprisingly, they are nice big ones. So both of these have the big holes through them. So I'm going to go ahead and use these. I'll put one for the return and one on the bottom for the feed. And I'll take one of my ones that has a small hole in it here, and I'll use that for the vent right here, so I don't have to screw around with different fittings. And then I also got the 8-inch pipe plug right here that goes in for the drain plug. Oops. So we'll stick that into this outer hole right here to make sure we do that right. Now these are put in here with looks like Teflon tape, which I don't use. Here, now you can see it. I use Teflon pipe sealant, which is this stuff here, and it's looks basically like toothpaste. So there's what it looks like. You smear that on the fitting and just make sure it doesn't go in the hole, and you put that in there. This doesn't really cause any problems. Tape can get inside the fitting if you're not good on putting it on. I only use tape if I got to fill up some big voids. Otherwise I use this paste on everything else. So I'm going to get these all gooped up, put in, and get the tank mounted up into here. I'm going to use these bolts right here. This is a rubber mounted tank, so it's got soft tail style mounts here with rubbers. And these take a big washer so that they hit against the washer right there. I mean the rubber, and keeps it from falling out. And this is one of the few places that'll actually use a lock washer because of the vibration and everything. You don't want to use too much Loctite on these because you do have to pull this stuff apart frequently to work on the bike. So a lock washer for this application is one of the few. This is not a high torque application, otherwise I wouldn't use them here. So anyway, that's what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and get this tank mounted and get these lines put up on here. I'm going to have to pull this line out here, so I might show you that when I get that out. Okay, I'm doing a trial fit on these oil lines up under here. These aren't routed like stock, so we got 3 big thick oil lines in here. There's only supposed to be 1 thick one and 1 thin one. So I'm going to make sure they come through here without hitting anything. Don't get crushed by the starter being on top here. And after you got this all in there, you want to go back here and make sure that you can move these oil lines back and forth slightly to make sure that there's clearance. See how you can move it back and forth a little bit? So you do all 3 of them. Now this one here was pretty tight, so I had to go ahead and do a little trimming. So what I did was go ahead and ground the boss away right here. So it's a little bit of flat spot here to begin with, right in this spot, but not here. So I went and ground it down. You can see how much the bolt area is left there, so you got plenty of material. I took this whole boss here away, and that allows this line here to sit on top of the case. You can see how the case here, you got low spot room for 2 lines, and you got a high spot. You can see how the other line was jammed into here before. So stack these things all up. So you got feed, return, and vent. Now the other thing I'm going to do, you can see how you got the sharp corner right here, which you're going to want to eat on this line. So I'm going to go up there and get my die grinder, and I'm going to knock off the corner of this fitting right here, and the case right there, so we won't chafe this line right here in this spot. And the other tight spot is up under here on this motor mount, so I'll go ahead and kiss that lightly also, just kind of radius that. So we just knock off these high spots and sharp edges so the lines don't get torn up. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, we got these edges all ground away right now. So you can see we took that corner off, took the corner of the fitting off, and then we took off around this edge right here. And we used our die grinder right here to get in here and do that. So just come in here and knock this stuff off like this. So anyway, that's what these grinders are for. So now when you put the lines over in here, like this, and everything, there it goes, lays in there nice and cleanly. So now it goes in there like that. We're not hitting on that big sharp edge anymore. We're on here. So it's a lot better than what it was. So anyway, all that little stuff like that makes stuff live longer because it doesn't rub holes through everything. And also doesn't pinch these oil lines, which is bad because if you pinch the oil lines, they don't flow any oil. Your motor kind of likes that. So I'm going to go ahead and put the starter up in here, get these lines swapped out for a little bit longer on the one, and get these rooted in there, and we come back. Okay, we got these oil lines rooted up under here. I just sliced my finger wide open this stupid ass clamp right here. Teach me to leave this crap like this on the bike. So that's coming off. I'll put a clamp under it's correct. So like the ones over here on the other side. See them all nice tucked in clean. No sharp edges. Same on the bottom down here. So it's going to feed through right in there. Once I get the starter to hold all these correctly, I'll get them all rooted a little bit better. But for now, they are how they're going to be. Get the stuff so it works correctly the first time, you don't have any problems. So this piece of crap's coming off of here. So anyway, this will go on there like that. It's like we had it before, except now I got this new line on here. So anyway, except for this piece of crap, we're good. So go ahead and get that cleaned up. We'll get back to it. Okay, I got the starter all up on here now. Tight squeeze all these lines back under there. There's the mess coming through here. So this vent line kept wanting to get pinched in behind the starter, so I had to go like this here, and it went pop, and it came out from under the backside of it. So and you got to make sure you got the vent line, or not the vent line, the feed line go like that. Make sure it's got clearance. They definitely are tight in here. Damn it. Have to hold the camera up where you can see. So it's a pretty tight squeeze. These lines are pre-cut, so I couldn't make them any longer than what they are. It'd be nice if they were another inch longer or so. But anyway, they were already in there, so I'm just using what I got. So you can see that's a pretty tight squeeze coming wrapping around the starter under there. Then we got our feed line in here now. This is our alternator hookup. And then this is our transmission vent going down through there. So these two bolts up in there are now full tight. So the primary's ready to go back together now. The next thing to do, I guess, once I get the kicker cover on over here. So you can see how these are all rooted up over here. This is a view from the other side. So everything's laid in there pretty good. Definitely a tight squeeze coming up through here. So, but everything is, you know, they're free under here. They're just pulled taut. So, all right, so that's all good to go. Let's see, did he have a cover here or not? I don't know, if I got the sprocket cover. I don't think I got the sprocket cover yet for here. So, oh well, we'll look through the box of parts, find out. But anyway, this part's in here now. So I cut this off here flush with the chain, so I didn't want to go underneath forward because of dirt and shit can run up inside the tranny. At least this way it's inside the cavity right here, so it's not going to get too much crap in it. So this side here is all done. I'm going to move up to the oil filter mount up under here. Next thing, I guess, get these lines plugged up under there. So the first one here is a screwing fitting. It screws in the top right there. This is the stock line, looks good. This one here, I'm going to go ahead and return it to replace it. And then you get the filter mounted up in here. You got to make sure there's an O-ring seal right here. Make sure that's sealed up before you put it back up in here in your generator snout. It's going to be pretty tight around these here, so I'll probably take a file and knock off this edge right here. Make sure these things are deburred a little bit. So I'll do that right now with the grinder. Make sure the stuff is not going to rub through our oil lines. So I'll check all that here next. Okay, got the new oil line on here. This is the one I took off the feed over here. I got the stock line still here. I got the new oil sender in here. And I got the clamp tucked up nice and tight here because of the bracket over here. I went ahead and deburred this edge here, and this one down here a little bit on this one, but mainly this one. And put the clamp up here behind the switch so it's tucked away. So it should have maximum clearance against this that way. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this up in there, and then get this line up here on top of that. So can't do that and hold the camera, so I'll do that and then come back. Okay, I got the filter hanging up off the up there. So I got this one oil line fitted up under here. So I tighten that one up. So this is all ready to go back up in here. We got the O-ring seal in there against the case. So I'm going to go and put that up on that. Like I said, make sure everything's good and clear. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut this to length and hook it there. We'll come back and show you that. Okay, I've got the filter all mounted up on here now. You can see how the switch is all up under there. Yeah, here you can see that, I guess. There it is tucked up under there. So, full access to it. So this clamps in here backwards. You know, if I redid it now, I would have that the other way around, but no, it's too late now, it's in. So this one down here, I got down here. This one here I could have made a little bit longer. Another ½ inch longer if it gave me probably more nut clearance, but you can pull it out, put the wrench behind it, be fine. You don't have too much line hanging out either. It just rubs more up in here, which we're trying to avoid. So anyway, it's all tucked up nice and clean. You got access to do repair work if you have to do it. So hopefully all these leaks and stuff up here all quit leaking. Stuff just dribbling down from who knows where. I'm hoping the oil pump up there has got all the seals and shit up in there. So I haven't worked on the motor, so I don't know what's going on with it. Hopefully it's good. Otherwise, it looks like the oil pump is leaking, but I guess we'll find out after we get it lit off. I got so much big oil leaks on everything, it was hard to tell where things were leaking. So anyway, got that all done. So now I got to do is get this ignition wire rerouted a little bit. Get that done. Go ahead and pour some oil in the tank here and let it sit overnight. Let the oil soak its way down into the oil pump down there. So I'm going to get that here in a few minutes. So I'm going to get this wire routed up around here so we can figure out how we're going to run it. Probably going to wind up going to the forward, I would think, because we're going to put I'll put a little instrument panel up here with all the stuff we need, which is basically just a kill switch, a dead man switch, an oil light, and a starter button. So that's probably the direction it's going to go. The coil is going to be right here too, so that probably is what we're going to do. This here is your vent for your motor. So this is just a matter of putting a hose from here and just running right across here and run it toward the back of the bike someplace, let it drip on the ground. So once we get all the exhaust and everything else on here, we'll go ahead and figure out how we're going to route that. So think we're almost done with all this stuff. So looks like the primary is the next thing on the other side, so move on. Okay, I'm getting ready to put this primary back together. There's a couple little things here you need to pay attention to on these things. This is on the 4-speed Sportsters, not the 5 speeds. So first thing is you got to make sure that you don't forget to put the little washer right here over your shift shaft. That keeps the shaft from falling out through the seal. Next thing is you got to make sure you put your gasket on the foot peg stud. If you don't do that, it leaks and it buckles the cover when you torque it down without it. The other thing you got to watch out is make sure you get the 3 dowels in here. You got one here, one over here, and the one down here in the center underneath your shoe right here. Now this one was missing on this bike. Now this is a newer style one here, which is a split dowel. So, damn light. So anyway, it has a split in it. Stupid ass light there. So anyway, that's how those are made. These older ones are solid one-piece dowels, no split. So you gotta do what you gotta do. This also fits a Softail twin cam Softail primary also. When you go to put these on, this clutch adjuster screws on. You have to screw the nut on to put the cover on, otherwise it doesn't go in. That's another problem. You also got to make sure that you lift up this spring right here. The other thing is you got the chainsaw bolt that fits up under here. It's up in the hole up in this thing, right there. As well, it's a set screw with a radius tip on it. Get the damn thing to focus. So anyway, it has a radius tip on that thing. Now you got to make sure that you have this unscrewed most of the way out so it doesn't stick up. If it sticks up on the inner primary. And here, when you go to put it on, it hits on the shoe and it bends the shoe and breaks it. So make sure you back that off until it's sticking out the bottom. So it sticks out quite a bit, a good inch plus. Be safe. Okay, this one here had the seal in there, was all screwed up, so I got to replace that. That's the other problem. So there's all kinds of little things you got to do. Also, there's a seal right here on that, that stud. It's a copper washer usually. This one here has a seal on the stud right here. This is actually a rubber tipped washer. It's not Harley, it's commercial stuff. The seal is right here for the shifter shaft. You see how chewed up the one is that came out of it. So you got to put the new one in here so it'll seal. If you don't do that, you'll have problems. This one's a race bike, so I'm only sealing the gasket to the primary to the case, not the cover. That way I can pull the cover on and off at the track and not have too many problems. And they already put a new clutch in here, so we should be good to go on the rest of this stuff. So there's a whole bunch of little things you got to pay attention to when you put this together. So make sure you put all those parts in there, otherwise you could have issues. So the biggest thing is putting this back on is you got to make sure the shoe is up here and this spring here is up here. So usually I kind of jack the cover in here sideways, catch this, push it up, and then push this up with a screwdriver to slide the cover on it. So I can't show you that because I'll be doing it with my both hands. So we'll come back here a little bit. Okay, I just got this cover slid up on here. Now the seal hangs up on this lip right here on the shaft. So it only sticks up about 1/10 thou here side, but that catches your seal. So you're trying to push this on, but it won't go. The spring was up on here sticking out, so I was pushing this up with my finger. It was sticking through up under here. The chain shoe wasn't a problem because I don't have the adjuster screw in here at all, so that wasn't too bad of a deal. So you got to kind of hold your finger up under there and wiggle this back and forth as you're pushing on it slowly. You know, with fairly firm pressure, but you kind of rock it back and forth, and eventually it pops over that lip. Once it goes over that lip, it starts going on easy. Then you have to get up under here with your finger, get the spring up. Once it's up, it slides right on. So it's kind of tricky. Take your time, go slow. If you got to force it, you're not doing it correctly. The biggest problem is getting over the seal. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put all the screws in here and tighten this thing down. Okay, got all these other screws in here. All these screws are the same length all the way around except for the 3 with the dowel holes. So this is the length of the short ones. So you can see when you push it in, you only got about 1/4 inch of thread here, so it's really easy to strip. Whereas if you put a little bit longer screw in there, you got about 1/2 inch of thread, which is like it's supposed to be. That's how these other ones are when they poke in the hole. So you need to have 3 in that are a little bit longer. So you can see how they're 1/4 inch longer here. So these are probably about 1 3/4 inches, something like that. So make sure you put the 3 longer ones where the dowels go, which is on the 2 ends of the primary, and the bottom center down here under your chain shoe. If you don't do that, they tend to strip out a little bit. So this here is our chain shoe here. So this is ready to go up into there now. So we go ahead and work this all up, get our chain adjusted up in there. And I got to get me a little washer going here. This is basic, it's a 10mm banjo bolt washer off your brake lines, and it's a regular 3/8 lock nut. So I'll get those pieces and stick them on there. Okay, new problem is we got the trying to put these longer, whatever they are, Allens in here, and the hole is full of crap on the back one. This one started going a little bit tight, the bottom one in fine. This one here didn't want to go in at all. So what you got to do is you got to put your tap drill in here and clean the threads out. It's full of goop and crap in there probably, be my guess. Now it's a number 7 drill, which is about 201 thou. If you don't have that, just use a 3/16 drill. It's 190 or so. Okay, this one goes all the way through. So that means Harley didn't thread the damn thing all the way in, because they like using short screws that like to strip out. So that means this thing is probably going to be cutting threads in there. And if you force it in like that, it's going to break the case out most likely. What's going in? There it goes. It went in a little stubborn, but it went all the way in. It's just poking out the back side back in there right now. So it had a bunch of crap on the threads that I had to clean out. So even though I just poked the drill in there, it didn't seem like it did much. Before it wouldn't go in there half that far. So if you run into that problem, just put a drill through it, go in that a couple times until it goes in easier. And don't force it too bad or it'll blow the whole case right out the back side there. It's a big mess. Okay, I'm going to go find a seal for this and we'll get this part done. Okay, I get all the screws all tightened all the way around now. Okay, here's the, this is the banjo bolt washer, 10mm for your brakes. So see how it goes right over, goes right over a 3/8 stud. Fits right in the counterbore of the case. And then you just use a standard 3/8 lock nut to tighten it up. Now when you tighten this thing down, don't get super carried away. There's not a lot of support on these covers, you can break them out. You got to tighten them up, but don't get carried away with it. So, a little mini ratchet here. Pull it in like that. And just put your wrench on there. And, oh, about that much torque's fine. Don't need to get carried away with it, like I said. Okay, this here is our chain shoe adjuster here. Usually what I do is you just screw this in at the bottom, and then up here at the top, you look at your chain here and see how much clearance you got. So you can see how loose that is right now. See, it's not even hitting on it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep screwing this on the bottom. Like I said, just watch for your chain up here to move. At some point it's going to move in there. It just got a lot easier to move, so I think I went through the threads now. It's going to start hitting the, there it goes, it just started hitting the shoe. So see how the chain level's going up. Still got a lot of slop in there. Take some more of it out. Still a lot of slop. Alright. You're supposed to have about 3/8 of an inch up in there. 3/8 to half. That's just going up and down like that. Okay, so that's close. We get about this much thread hanging out under here. Now, being a race bike, you want to run these things loose. So we're going to go ahead and back this up a little bit. Make sure it's real nice and loose. Now you should turn the motor over and find a tight spot in here, but I'm going to run it so loose it shouldn't matter. Okay, so now we're going to run about 3/4 of an inch to upwards of an inch of free play Because for racing, you don't want to have drag in here, so you want to have it nice and loose. Loose is good. Okay, after you get that in there, then you go ahead and take your combination right here, or make it in like this. Hold this with your Allen wrench on the bottom like that, and then tighten this nut down. Same deal, you don't want to tighten the hell out of it, just a little bit. So you just got to keep it from unscrewing. So I got to do it with 2 hands, so I'll get back to this. Okay, keep trying to get stuff done here. Everything's fighting me. Okay, I got the chain up in here adjusted up. So, damn light, stay on. Actually, it might be a little bit too loose for me, too tight for me. That'll work. Okay, so I got this held here. I tighten it up till it squashed my washer flat and it's tight. That's handled. I see that the screw for the level plug is gone. I guess they figured I didn't need one. So I went and got a bolt. Yeah, to use a washer. The seal gasket washer is actually a rocker box gasket. A washer for up here on an EVO. So it's the washer underneath there, same washer. And then I just use a regular nut, a regular bolt in the washer to support that. So just go ahead and tighten that up in there, and that'll take care of that problem. Next problem is I want to put the foot peg on it. So we got our foot peg right here. Stick that up on there. We have no threads, at least not enough for a nut. Nut's this long. And you can see how the threads are all screwed up because somebody was trying to do something stupid like put a foot peg on with no threads holding it. So I got to move this thing out here about 3/8 of an inch. And that's threaded all the way inside in the case, so somebody changed the stud out. These used to be coarse threads out here, so like somebody replaced the stud at some point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 nuts, put them together, put one there, put them right next to it, jam them together, and see if I can get this to unscrew out of here. So I'll measure how much I need to come out on that. So just everything you touch here is one more problem. And then I got to get back here to put the clutch together. So I'm going to work on this foot peg next. Okay, luckily the stud has come out. So I'm going to check this stud to make sure it's the right length. If it's not, I'm going to replace it. I'm going to go ahead and put Loctite on these threads, let it sit up overnight at the correct depth, so hopefully that'll keep it from moving. It's not all that tight in the case in there, so that might be why it was moved in. So I'll work on that a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go check that out right now, and then I'll be back. Okay, here's that stud we pulled out of the primary. These are the 2 studs out of an Ironhead Sportster. So you can see how the coarse thread on the ends. Actually, it goes like this. The long one always goes on the inside. But you can also see there's a big difference in length between EVO and Ironhead. So this is your left one on an Ironhead, this is your right one. And EVO is only a ½ inch longer than the short one, and this one's a lot longer. So I'm not going to be able to use either one of these 2 here to do what I need with that. So I got 2 options. I can, like I said, Loctite this stud in there. I'll check to see what the thread engagement is over here. If I don't have enough thread engagement, the other option is to put a long bolt through the whole thing. So I might just do that anyway. A little easier. So I'll go take a look and make some decisions here. Okay, I'm trying to put this stud in here, but it's not cooperating. I put red Loctite on it. There's a bunch of oil in the hole. Part of the crankcase is full of oil. So I'm just going to stick the stud in there, hope like hell the Loctite will stick to something, but with oil all over everything, not likely. So at this point, it's all I can do. The crankcase is obviously full of oil. That's supposed to be a tight thread, and you can tell it just goes in my fingers. So I'm just put it in there like that. I put the new nut on the stud is what I needed, and that's where I need to be. So all I can do is tighten it up and go from there. We got about 3/4 of an inch of thread in the actual case, so it's not much. But it's enough to hold it. So it's good enough for this fix. Later on I'll have to do it better, but for now it'll work. So I got the peg here, it's on there straight also, which is nice. I had to rebend the bracket to fit a little bit better. So this part here is on. So I'm going to get the shift lever up on here, and then I'll get back to the clutch. So let me get this part done now. Okay, getting ready to put the lever on here. I got up here on the bike, set up here, trying to figure the best spot to put this so you can ride it the best, and pretty well sucks. Lever's way too short for my big feet. When you wear boots, they don't fit very well. I think it's made for girls or something. This thing needs to be, instead of being here, it needs to be about out here for me. So this is my bike. I'd make a new shift lever, but I don't have to ride it. All right, so I got it on top of the spline there, and then we just take it and just tap it on in. This is a pretty tight one, so beat it in there until it's about flush right here. And you got your Allen. Comes up from below. If you got in far enough, the Allen will go right in, just like it is now. And that'll work. So I can go ahead and tighten it up with a wrench. Okay, I just got to tighten this plug up here too. All right, I want to pop over here to the clutch before we got too far involved. All right, hit the wrong button. So I went ahead and tightened up the screw over here and got this adjusted. Now after you get this in, you got to make sure it shifts and doesn't hit the bolt right there. So you can see how it's got clearance over here on this side. So if you get too tight, it would hit. You can't have that. So back in neutral. This thing needs to be tightened up a little bit too. Okay, so we're going to get back over here to this clutch. So here's our parts here. This is the nut that screws in, and this is the lock nut that keeps them going, and then you get the spring that holds it all on top of each other, and the cover here holds the spring. The spring goes right in there like that. So that's how all these pieces work. So this here has a flat spot on it, if you see it, and the flat spot goes here in the oval hole in the nut right there. This one just threads in. So threads in this direction here like this, and you got to take a little small screwdriver, like this one here, and hold it. There you go, and then thread this thing in there. Of course, this is something I can really do with one hand easily. So I'm going to go get this thing started because I can't get it started. So we'll shut this off, get back. Okay, I got the nut started under there. So once you get it screwed in enough to hit that, you just keep going with this. And it sucks it all the way in. At some point it will bottom out against the clutch, which is where you want to be. Okay, right now we just got it hard. Now our inner cable is right here. We obviously have no lever on it. So we still have free play in our cable here. So it's not bottoming out on that. So this is bottoming out inside here in the clutch itself. So I'm going to do a little screwdriver just to there it is. Okay, so after you bottom this out, like right there, go in there and check it. So we'll just keep going until we get to a spot that we know is bottomed out. Okay, we're bottomed out. All the clearances are taken up, so we're tight. So you back it off until you get to zero free play. So let's call it right here. Then you go half a turn and 3/4 of a turn. You might have to go a full turn after you go what the book says, but it's a good starting point. After you get it where you want it, then you take your nut and you slip it over and you see what you got to work with. So we're going to go ahead and go down to 1/8 of a turn here until it drops in. There it goes. And then the spring goes on top of this like this. Here. And as I recall, it used to pop onto that nut. So let me pull that off and see if we can't get the spring to pop on there. There we go. So you go back to the same spot you just had it. And that holds it in, that locks the mechanism so it doesn't go anywhere. And when you put this in here, it holds it all together when you tighten this up against it. Now, to get the new clutch cable lever in here, I'm going to have to unadjust it so I got some free play. So I'm going to leave this loose because I have to come back in here and work on this. So for now, I'll just go ahead and back this thing off a little ways. But you can see how you adjust this thing. Now to tighten these covers up, it takes a special wide bladed wrench or your Chevrolet tool. and they make tools for doing that, or just use a big flat blade. You can use a piece of key stock in here, tighten the key stock with a crescent wrench, chunk of metal. There's all kinds of different ways of doing it. But anyway, you'll figure it out. And you got to make sure you got the O-ring here on the back side to seal it, or it'll leak like crazy. Alright, so for now we're done with this for tonight. Because until I get a clutch cable, I can't hook that up. And I got to put oil in here, but I'm going to let it sit overnight before I put oil in it. And other than that, this thing's completely all tightened up. So the motor's getting close to where we can start this thing up. I got 2 quarts of oil in the oil tank right now. Here's the difference. So we'll let that drain and work its way through all these lines, so when it starts up we should have oil. So once we get that all in there, then we're going to go ahead and put our ignition in here, set the timing, put the carburetor up on it, and then light it off. And look, I've got a regular battery for starting. I've already got the CompuFire ignition roughed in a little bit, but we'll talk about this later once we get that done. So by another hour or so I could probably have this thing running. So not rideable, but running. Yeah, you could probably ride it too, there's a chain on it, but there's no brakes. You don't need brakes. So anyway, that's it for now.
There you go, Chip.
Thanks, Matt.
You're being filmed.
Alright.
Now you gotta talk to the camera while you're doing that.
Alright, well I'm tightening the triple tree on our dirt tracker bike for Buddy Subtle to ride, which Tatro won't let me stop building.
Basically, we got a roll of shirt right here.
Okay. Alright.
Everything else looks like
Tighten the bars next.
Likely you're getting the video customs in there.
Oh, you like that? Free advertising. Tatro's YouTube. It's where all the real advertising happens. Okay. So, hey, buddy.
You know, okay, I just got done making up this dash right here. So this basically gives us our on-off switch right here. We got an idiot light here for oil pressure. And then I have a starter button right here. And this is a dead man switch. You pull this out and the bike quits running. So if you fall off, that's how everything shuts down. So that has a tether right here that you use. So this just goes around your, I like hooking these to my jacket zipper, but wherever you want to hook them to. It's got a hook on it, put it on your waist. And what I do is I just put a loop of wire right through here. Oop, right through the Deutsch connector. We just make a loop. And you stick the loop through this loop right here. And it's connected. And this one just goes to you and clip it on and you're good to go. So the clip is over here. There's the clip. That little thing there we cut off, we don't use it. So it's pretty simple. This has a way bigger eyelet than what we really need, but that's how they make these days. So all that just hangs right here, and like I said, if you fall off the bike, it shuts the bike off. Because everything goes through here, then the on-off switch. So pretty straightforward, easy bracket to make. It's got spacers up under here, so under your tree. And just make sure you got clearances up under here for all your wiring. We still have access to work on the bike if we need to without breaking anything off. Obviously you got plenty of gas tank room to pull it on and off. So it's nice, neat out of the way. You got one harness going to it and you're done. So that's all the electrical you need on a race bike.